What's up, guys? We are back with another NECA Toys Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles review, taking a look at what is hopefully the beginning of the end of the Loot Crate saga. So we got the first crate with Danny from the movie however many months ago. I say most people got him. I know some folks still never got theirs. And then they decided to ship crate number 3 recently, so we're taking a look at the comic entry in the line. So it was movie, video game, comic, cartoon, and crate 3 was the Claw Shredder. So this guy sort of kickstarts the Mirage line again alongside the Fugitoid that we got back, in April for Holothon, because he's in that new style kind of packaging. So, when you get this, he's going to be in familiar packaging if you got the Fugitoid. If not, it's still pretty normal, just kind of a different shape. So it's kind of like a trapezoidal kind of thing. But you've got the figure there in the window, comic style artwork that wraps around the entire box. And then the back of the box gives us sort of like a comic paneling lineup of shots of the Claw Shredder, but it's not artwork, it's actually product images. So I do like this packaging. Like it's very collector friendly in many ways, because you could put him back in there if you wanted to, but if you don't take him out, it does look good as far as presentation goes. But we're gonna do it, we're gonna pull him out, so let's take a look. And here we go, out of the package, our Loot Crate exclusive Mirage Claw Shredder. So this guy is, at this point, he's probably, of the ones that are remaining, probably my least anticipated, just because he's so similar to the Mirage Shredder that we've had for a while now. He's, of course, very different, but he doesn't really introduce anything that new to the game, really. He is still very much an older style of NECA turtle figure. So there's a lot of reuse on this guy. If you have that original Mirage Shredder, you basically know what's going on here, except for the fact that, well, he's got these big monster claws. So let's see what he can do, see how he moves around. You've got a head that's on a ball, so it can look up about that far. It can look down, not really at all. And you've got tilt and rotation. However, the neck is articulated, so the neck will bend down, so he does look down really far. It's just not at the head. And then it also bends backward to help him look up even further. So it's just kind of hidden there. For a while, I didn't know that the original one had that, I think. I remember kind of having a eureka moment when I noticed it one day. We've got arms that go out at the shoulders. Watch out for these spikes on the pads. They are decidedly pointier than the regular Mirage Shredder because it's a different pad. Arms go out, but they only go that far because this is connected to the torso, not the arms, so it doesn't go with the arms. You've got a bicep swivel. We've got double jointed elbows, and mine feel kind of loose. Like this is kind of loose, right? But the other one seems relatively okay. It's not the best, but it's also not terrible. And they do stay in place. Like once they're posed, they seem to be fine. So it's not the biggest deal right now. We've got articulated pinching claws, which are pretty cool. They do seem like they might twist a little bit, but there's not a whole lot of clearance there, so watch out. You've got a torso rotation, and that is it on this guy. That's all he has. Just like that original Mirage Shredder. We do have updated hips on this figure, though, so it's the ball and socket. So still pretty good range, just like we would expect, but it's the current style. Legs kick forward. They kick backwards a good bit, too. You do have your thigh twist up there. We've got double jointed knees. Get that arm out of the way. And then you've got nothing as far as rotation. Even though there's a cut here, there's no rotation, or there could have been a cut, rather. It's a pretty stark line. You've got decidedly good rocker down here, though. I'm pretty happy about that. And this big hinge. So ankles go backwards a little bit, and then they go forwards a little bit as well. I mean, it's pretty good. For such a big old fat joint, like there is a decent amount of range there. So, he's pretty similar to the original Mirage Shredder, but he does have some of those updates. So, of course, he doesn't have ball pegs at the feet like all the old figures used to have. He has, of course, these big monster arms now, and then he's got the updated hips. But the rest of the figure, I mean, most of this is reuse, so it's exactly what you would expect if you have that old figure. Moves pretty well. Still has some limitations. The biggest area of, I guess I'll say, concern is that there's no diaphragm cut, there's no ball jointed waist, there's no real forward, backward, side to side at the torso. It's just a swivel. But I'd wager that a lot of folks maybe aren't buying this guy because he's the most dynamic figure in the world, or they aren't buying the Loot Crates, rather. It's because of the look. If you're really going after this one crate, it's because of the look. He is still, again, he's very, very similar to the Mirage Shredder that we've gotten previously. He he's arguably the easy one to have done with existing reuse. You know, I'm curious if we're ever going to get the others. You know, are we going to get the 4-armed one? Are we going to get the little mini shredder? But this guy is overwhelmingly a lot of parts reuse. So the torso is parts reuse, the little diapers parts reuse, the thighs, the upper arms, the neck. That's about it, I think. And then, of course, you know, you've got new legs down here. You've got the claws. We've got different shoulder pads. We've got a different head. But the base figure, like the trunk of the figure, I suppose, you know, the torso, the upper legs, the upper arms, everything that makes him sort of the base body is all the same as this guy. And we'll just go ahead and do this right now just to get this out of the way. So here they are next to each other, just to give you an idea of what we're talking about. And you can see, I mean, outside of some paint differences, they are very, very similar. And these two should share some parts. Like, I'm not saying it in a negative sense. It's just it is what it is kind of thing. So you've got two very similar figures that kind of diverge in two very different ways. So of course our regular Shredder and then one of our clones here. But you can see that if they were going to need to make a reuse off of this guy, I think this is a pretty solid example of it, because he's still very normal humanoid size. He just happens to have those crazy claws. But you can see a lot of similar stuff here, but then enough to make him a little bit different. Not just the fact that he has big claws, but he has these big fat feet. He's got the different shoulder pads, which have these much spikier spikes on them, and then you've got an entirely different head sculpt up here, which does give him quite a bit of character, because he's always had this sort of weird helmet. The weird mouth guard design on this one has always been kind of like misshapen and really goofy looking, and I think they translated that pretty well here when it comes to doing it. It's, you know, it's kind of a thin helmet and mask, and it kind of just tapers down, and then it has that curve on it too, and that's not an error, so don't worry about that. It's not a mistake. It's supposed to be that way. It always has this sort of weird droop to it, so you've got that going. And then of course, you know, he's got tons of this you know, sort of cell shaded style of line work on there. It's similar to but different from the cartoon line, obviously, but it's very, very similar in its execution, in that they're trying to go for this one specific art style with these really, really heavy, thick black lines, which I think works, and I've always been a fan of it when it comes to the comic book lines here. Granted, you know, at the end of the day, the big thing for this particular figure comes down to what makes him the Claw Shredder. So that comes into, you know, two big things with this guy literally are the claws, and these things are gigantic. They are enormous. You know, they do weigh a little bit, so you are going to have to play with them when it comes to posing, but they're gnarly looking. I mean, all these spikes and jagged edges. I love the fact that this is articulated. I didn't know that it was. I'm not sure that it was really advertised well, if it was or wasn't, but to notice that was kind of fun, and it just allows you to change him up ever so slightly, because this guy has no accessories either. What you see is what you get. So, you know, his weapons are his hands, and he's got to live like a tortured existence, really, right? But they did a really good job of making this look sort of just gross and gnarly and disgusting. And it works really well in the context of what these guys are and how they are presented in the comic. And then, of course, he's got these big, nasty-looking feet down here, like some Elephant Man kind of feet with the big wraps. And again, tons more of that black line work. And for the most part, paint on this figure is pretty solid. You know, there's a ton of paint on him to begin with, as usual. But I think colors are really saturated and really bright and vibrant. Bright in the sense that they're very, very heavy. It's not like he's a pastel-colored figure or anything, but everything's very much on point as far as colors. The metallic is really nicely done. Those piercing red eyes just help to sort of break up that black void that's under the mask. But really, you know, they nailed the one key aspect of this figure, I think, is the claws, just because they are so weird, they're so different, and they're such a huge focal point of this figure that they really put a lot of detail and effort into making those fit onto essentially just a buck body. They made those work in the context of the normal Mirage Shredder, but made him into this, you know, sort of crazy monstrosity type of thing. And then as far as some size comparisons go, you know, let's just knock the few out that matter the most right here. So we've got our other Mirage Shredder. Just for comparison's sake, you can see again that they are essentially the same thing, same height, same everything, except for the deformed extremities on our new one. And then we've got one of the older Mirage turtles here on the left. So we've got Donnie, and you can see that these turtles are definitely small. I mean, they've always been kind of on the small side to begin with, even for turtles. But they are a good head and a half shorter than our Claw Shredder here. And then let's do a Toon Turtle. You know, they're a little bit bigger than the Mirage, not much, just slightly, but it gives you an idea of what they look like there. And then let's move him aside and let's do, you know, a Hasbro 1/12 scale figure. So here is the G.I. Joe Classified Series Crocmaster, just for a more normal humanoid kind of figure. And of course, you know, despite the fact that this is in a different scale, these guys line up pretty good because these Shredder figures they've never been super big. They aren't like actual, you know, NECA 7-inch figures. And then we'll move Leo aside and do one more. Here is the Super 7 Ultimates Thundercats Chitara for, you know, a 7-inch scale figure, but of course something that still looks like it belongs alongside our Shredder here. So it's not a big figure by any means. It's going to scale really nicely with all the other Mirage stuff. I say all, what we have so far. And then it's going to work pretty well with just about all of our toon, comic, and video game turtles that we've gotten from NECA so far. So yeah, overall pretty happy with this guy. Again, there's not a whole lot to talk about on this one. For the 50th time, if you've got the regular Mirage Shredder, you basically know what to expect. So if you're kind of happy with that one, you'll probably be happy with this guy. It all comes down to the aesthetics, though. He's got that crazy, weird, droopy mask that always is just kind of an oddball look and design to him, but it works well. It makes him look a little bit more unique. And then, of course, you've got the big fat feet. You've got those big monster claws with the surprise articulation with those little pinchers, which I was really happy to see. Paint on him is really clean and crisp. The only thing that I truly am concerned about with him is the claws, because of the fact that my elbows do seem to be a little bit loose, possibly because those claws are so heavy in comparison to what are arguably some relatively small arms. Otherwise, though, still a pretty fun figure, if not the one I was kind of looking forward to the least out of what's left to go. So that's going to do it for this look at the NECA Toys Loot Crate exclusive Mirage Claw Shredder. Let me know what you guys think. Feel free to like, comment, subscribe, and share, and until next time.